Hello students.
Hello, sir.
Students, today I am going to show you how to purify a mixture of compounds using column chromatography. Column chromatography is a powerful separation technique which has wide applications in various branches of chemistry, biology and pharmaceutics, which have wide applications again in industry. Before I start this technique, let me ask you whether you know any separation techniques?
Yes, sir. Distillation.
Okay.
Sir, sublimation, recrystallization.
Good. If there is a mixture that has two or more components that have similar properties which cannot be purified by the separation techniques that you mentioned, we use column chromatography. So, column chromatography, in which we actually adsorb the compounds onto solid stationary phase and purify it using liquid mobile phase.
Sir, what are these stationary phase and mobile phase here?
Good question. Stationary phase is usually silica gel onto which the compounds are actually adsorbed, and mobile phase is actually a solvent or solvent mixture which we use to separate the compounds. However, we will learn more while we are performing the experiment.
Sir, you have used the word adsorption twice.
Yes.
Can you please explain it?
Adsorption is actually a phenomena in which a compound is physically or chemically attached to a material. In this case, the compounds are actually attached to or adsorbed to silica gel. So, column chromatography is a part of adsorption chromatography. So, adsorption chromatography is classified into two things. One is called thin layer chromatography, we call it TLC, and column chromatography. Okay students, today I will show you how to perform column chromatography to separate the mixture of compounds containing an yellow compound, and which is compound A in this case, and a red compound which is compound B in this case. Okay? Yes, all right. So, column chromatography basically involves a glass tube packed with a slurry of silica gel, which is a stationary phase, and the loaded mixture will be separated into components based on adsorption and polarity. But first of all, you need to perform thin layer chromatography, which we call it TLC, to obtain a suitable mobile phase to separate the components of mixture pretty well. Students, this is a TLC. I took a mixture of compounds, a yellow one and the red one. However, I am not going to show you the details of thin layer chromatography today. But this experiment suggested me that I can use 80-20 mixture of hexanes and ethyl acetate to purify the compound. In addition, it also suggested that I can load the column with 100% hexanes and increase the polarity to separate the compounds. This process is called elution.
Sir, if we can purify the compounds using TLC itself,
Yeah.
then why do we need column chromatography?
Good question. TLC is usually used for milligrams of compound, whereas column chromatography is used for grams of compounds.
Okay, sir.
Okay? So students, as I showed you today, this is TLC. It's a sheet of silica gel. I'm going to use the same silica gel for column chromatography, which follows the same principles of TLC. So students, you can see that I have fixed the column to the stand and tightened the screw so that the column doesn't fall down and break.
Okay,
I left some space at the bottom so that I can collect the compounds by putting the beaker or a test tube at the bottom of the column. Okay?
Okay, sir.
All right. Now I am going to load the column, but you know that, or you can see that silica gel is a fine powder and it will pass through the column. So I have to put cotton at the bottom of the column, press it tightly so that the silica gel doesn't filter through it, and I am going to do it right now. So students, I have used the glass rod to press the cotton tightly. Now I am taking the glass rod and keeping it outside. Now I will tell you how to make the slurry of silica gel.
Okay, sir.
But before doing that, I need to wear the safety goggles and safety gloves so that the silica gel that I am going to take doesn't fall into my eyes or onto my hands. Okay?
sir.
All right. So I am going to take a beaker and some of the silica gel that I already showed you. Then I am going to take some hexanes, which I have it here, and pour in it. Now I take a glass rod and stir it nicely so that I can make a slurry of silica gel. Okay?
Sir, why are you stirring it?
Oh, we stir it in order to get rid of the air bubbles, and also the silica gel will mix uniformly with the solvent.
Okay, sir.
Okay? So students, I have made the slurry of silica gel and I have to load this slurry of silica gel into the column. But before doing that, I need to put little bit of solvent into the column. I have to put it very carefully so that some of the solvent is right above the cotton. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Yes.
Now I am going to load this slurry of silica gel using a glass funnel. Okay, I am putting the glass funnel on the top of the column nicely.
Yes.
So now at this part you have to do it couple of times. Okay, then we can collect the solvent. Then you can pour it back. Then you can open the stopcock like this. And then you can collect the solvent. Make sure that most of the silica gel is already loaded into the column. Now I am putting this beaker aside. Now I am taking a glass pipette and I am going to wash the sides of the funnel and the column using the hexanes that I am going to use. But
Yes.
before that, I will put a beaker at the bottom so that the solvent doesn't fall on the floor. Okay?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So I am washing the sides of the funnel so nicely. Now I am taking out the glass funnel because totally the silica gel and the glass funnel is washed out.
Yeah,
Yes,
yes,
sir.
sir.
Now I will take some of the hexanes and wash. You can see it carefully that I am washing the sides of the column so nicely that the silica gel that is stuck to the column sides has been washed
Washed.
inside.
Yes, sir.
So now I am going to release the stopcock very gently so that the extra solvent which is on the top is going to come down slowly. Then the silica gel is settled down nicely. There is some solvent on the top of the silica gel. Make about 3 to 4 inches height of silica gel so that the compounds can be separated properly.
Sir, how did you determine the height of the column?
There are many factors to determine the height of the column, but most importantly, it depends on the amount of the compound that you want to purify.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now students, you can see that the silica gel is settled nicely and there is some hexanes on the top of the silica gel. Now I am going to tap the column.
Sir, why do we need to tap the column?
Oh, we need to tap the column so that we can get rid of the air bubbles and the silica gel will settle nicely and the purification can happen properly. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Now you tap the column few times and then release the stopcock and let the solvent pass by. Then you close it. Again you tap it nicely so that it settles down nicely, and then again you open it. Then one last time you can tap it nicely and make sure that the column or the silica gel is packed very nicely. You can repeat this 3 to 4 times so that the silica gel can be packed properly. Okay. Now close the stopcock and let's do the experiment. So students, now I am going to take the mixture of compounds which I am going to show it to you here and add some chloroform to dissolve them and some silica gel to make a fine powder.
Okay,
So
sir.
first of all, I am going to take some chloroform, very little bit, and I am going to add it to them so that they are dissolved. Make sure that they are almost and completely dissolved. Then add some silica gel to it. So that the mixture is completely absorbed onto the silica gel. So in order to evaporate the chloroform, I am going to take a glass rod and I am going to stir it nicely so that the compound will be completely a fine powder. Students, this will take at least 5 to 10 minutes in order to get a fine powder. Now students, you can see that after stirring it for 5 to 10 minutes, I got a very fine powder.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Now I am going to load this compound onto the column. But before doing that, I am going to put some hexanes into the column using a pipette. Please be careful while you are pouring the hexanes into the column. Pour it uniformly so that it doesn't disturb the top layer. I'll pour little bit more. Now you can tap the column if you want to make it a nice layer. Now I am going to load the compound using the funnel. So I am going to put the funnel on the top of the column and I am going to slowly pour the compound into the column so that it can settle down nicely. So you can see that I almost finished all the mixture.
Yes, sir.
Now I am going to take little bit of more hexanes and I am going to wash the funnel if some compound is stuck to the funnel. Then I am going to take out the funnel and I am going to wash the sides of the column using hexanes. Now you can see that the compound is nicely settled on the silica gel layer. Now I am going to add some sand on the top of this mixture layer. So for this I am taking some sand and I am going to add it.
Sir, why are you adding sand here?
Oh, we need to add the sand because the compound layer or the mixture layer will not be disturbed while we are adding the mobile phase during the experiment.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
So once you add the sand, you can tap it gently so that it forms the uniform layer on the top of your mixture layer. So students, from our TLC experiment, we know that the yellow compound and the red compound can be separated with 80-20 mixture of hexanes and ethyl acetate. Students, you can see I made 50 ml of 80-20 mixture of hexanes and ethyl acetate, and I am going to use this as the mobile phase to elute the compounds in the column. Okay.
sir.
Now I am going to pour it very carefully so that I don't disturb the top layer. So initially for few milliliters you can pour carefully, then later on you can increase the speed and fill the column. Now I am going to release the stopcock so that you will have some enough speed and the compounds will be eluted nicely. You can see that the yellow compound is actually coming first,
Yes, sir.
like the way that you saw it on the TLC. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And the red compound is at the bottom, which you can see it here is coming little slower.
Wow, it's beautiful.
You can see.
So you can say that the pattern is actually upside down compared to that of TLC,
TLC.
because in TLC is against the gravity, whereas column is towards the gravity.
Okay,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Now at this point we need to take the test tubes in order to collect the compounds. So you can see that slowly the yellow compound is coming. However, we are not collecting them in the test tube, we will slowly collect it. Now you can see that the solution is becoming more yellower.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Now I am collecting the first component. Which is the yellow
Yellow
compound,
color.
Yes, sir.
and you can see the red compound is actually stuck on the top because it is moving slowly.
Slowly.
Students, you can see that the yellow compound is actually moving much more faster compared to that of the red compound.
Yes, sir.
As one of my test tube is already getting filled, I will take a new test tube and put it here, and I will collect more of the yellow compound, and you can see that my mobile phase is getting used. So, I need to add more of the mobile phase, which is the same 80-20 mixture of hexane and ethyl acetate, and I am going to add more of the mobile phase very carefully. As you can see that the mostly yellow compound is already eluted. So, again, as my test tube is getting filled, I will take another test tube and I will collect my yellow compound. And students, also make sure that the speed is uniform. Don't go too much speed, at the same time don't go too slow. Okay. Now, you can see that almost of my yellow compound is eluted.
Yes, sir.
You can actually see a very nice space between the red one and the yellow one. There is actually the gap, that saying that the separation is very good.
Yes,
You can
sir.
see the same thing between the yellow one and the red one. There is actually the gap, that's saying that the separation is following same as the TLC.
Yes.
Now, students, you can actually observe it carefully that most of the yellow compound is already eluted. So,
sir.
now I can increase the polarity in order to elute my red compound. Okay, I am going to change the test tube again, because you can actually see the difference between the two test tubes.
Yes, sir.
One is really yellow and the other one is almost white.
Yes.
That is colorless. That says that most of the yellow compound is actually eluted.
Yes.
Now, students, you can see that the yellow compound is completely eluted. Now, I am going to increase the polarity to 50-50 hexanes and ethyl acetate to elute my red compound. Okay.
Yes.
So, here you can see I have a mixture of 50-50 hexane and ethyl acetate. Now, I am going to pour it here to elute my red compound. Again, pour it carefully so that it does not disturb the top layer. So, I will increase the speed little bit. I am going to change the test tube. Now, you can see that the yellow compound is completely eluted and the solution is colorless. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, as I increase the polarity, you can actually see that my red compound is slowly started moving. I can actually increase the speed of the column by opening the stopcock little bit more. The red compound appears dark yellow because it is in dilute solution. Students, now we can see that even the red compound is completely eluted. Okay. Now, the column is finished. I am going to close the stopcock. Now, students, we have completely eluted both the components of the mixture, which we call them as eluates, and I am showing them here. The first three test tubes contain the yellow compound, which is compound A, and then fourth and fifth test tube do not contain any compound. Then the remaining test tubes contain the compound B, which is a red compound, but the compound appears dark orange because it is in diluted form. As shown on the screen, from the structure we can see that silica gel is a polar adsorbent, as yellow compound, which is 2-nitroaniline, moved faster compared to red, that is methyl red. It can be understood that 2-nitroaniline is less polar compared to methyl red. The same thing was observed on TLC also. Now, students, the next job is to remove the solvent and use these compounds as pure compounds. So students, I hope you understood the working and basic principles of column chromatography. If so, could you summarize it?
Yes, sir.
Sir, we have learned the principles of column chromatography. It mainly consists of two phases. One, which is stationary phase, which is silica gel here, and the other is a mobile phase, which is a mixture of ethyl acetate and hexanes here.
Yes.
The compounds are purified based on adsorption and polarity.
Yes.
Sir, we also learned that the polar compounds stick to the gel and move slowly, whereas the non-polar compounds are eluted faster.
Good.
We have also learned that TLC is performed on small scale, hence it is qualitative technique.
Yes.
And column chromatography is performed on large scale, hence it is quantitative technique.
Well done students, you have understood the concepts of column chromatography. Now it's your turn to use this technique on new compounds. So when we meet next time, we are going to work on another technique. So till then, goodbye.